Daith da, Ewi Nakan. Welcome to podcast number 121. Now, if my experiment have worked proper, you would have heard introductory music at the beginning, and we will have some again at the end. It was one of the things you can do with this podcast thing, that you can add the music, and I thought I was going to record myself singing in that a bit, which I might do in the future. But I thought I would put on that little bit of Joybringer. We had it a bit last week. It was the first group I was ever in back in we started in 1979, finished in 1981. And I love that song. We used to do it in the Chipmunks afterwards, where I used to sing the lyrics as well as play the guitar, because with Federation, we just did it as a pure instrumental. So hopefully that went all right. I'm recording this on Thursday, the 2nd of January. So we're back at work after New Year, which is weird because we went into work today and it felt like a Monday, but tomorrow's Friday. And then we're off for 2 days, which is quite a good feeling, I must admit. I hope you had a good New Year. We had a pretty good one. It was weird. It was the first time that me and Beth didn't have any of the kids around. We managed to get over to see the fireworks there at midnight, and then called in to see Father in the cemetery on the way home, because obviously we live right opposite Eglesell Cemetery. So just popped in to see E as well. Since last time, we haven't had too many funerals really. After Christmas Day and Boxing Day, we did have one of these unattended funerals early one morning. I think that was last Friday. Yep, that's right, last Friday. And then this week, we had a private funeral first thing Monday morning. And then we had Dave's funeral dinner time on Monday, which I thought was going to be fairly straightforward. We knew there'd be a good crowd there because Dave was a lovely chap, real character. And it got to 12:15 and the priest stand turned up. So I rung back to the office. I said, here, Julia, give the priest a ring, make sure he's on the way. And worryingly, he answered the phone and it had slipped his mind. So I knew he was in Bodmin, so I wasn't overly worried, but it got to past and he still wasn't there. So we had to think, right, what are we going to do now? So we got everyone in seated. He still hadn't turned up. We'd had the first bit of music. I found out that one of the family was actually doing the eulogy, which was going to be fairly early on anyway. So I went up, just did a little introduction, and then we had the eulogy. Priest still wasn't there. Well, what do I do now? I'm thinking all the time. And then later on in the service, we were going to have a visual tribute. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this before. It's something that a lot of the crematoria offer now, where you can upload photos to a piece of music. So I thought, right, we'll do that now, and then hopefully he'll turn up. So we had that, and I'm at the back, and then I see his car pull in the car park. And I went over to him, and he come back just as that piece of music was finishing. So in he went, and then we had the rest of the service, and it was good. And when everybody come out afterwards, I'll tell you what, it could go 2 ways, something like that. You could have a family that are totally distraught, because it's not a good thing to happen. Or it could be like Dave's family, and they said he would have loved that. The friends was coming out laughing and everything went well. We had everything that should have been in the service, but 'twas a bit like Eric Morecambe playing the piano. All the right notes was there. It's just that they weren't necessarily played in the right order. And that was something like that, I tell you. But there we are. But so that was quite eventful, really. So, like I say, then we had New Year's Eve and the fireworks. And also, before I forget, I did do a video of the ringers of Eglesale, the bell ringers there, bringing us in, helping us bring in the new year, seeing out the old. And because we live, just a stone's throw away from the church as well. So that was proper. I had a lovely phone call from Ken Miller today. And there was something I checked back last week, because it's like I've said before, I'll record interviews with people and then they'll talk afterwards. And I was thinking, Ken said something which I thought was really funny, and I don't think I've mentioned it since. I had a quick look back and I couldn't find it anywhere. So in case, I don't think I am kind of repeating myself, but 'twas when Ken was a town councillor there on Weybridge Town Council, and he got stopped in the street one day by an elderly lady who was quite teasy with him, really. I think they'd done quite a bit for the youngsters of the town with different things. And she said to him, you ain't doing nothing for the elderly. Why don't you do anything for the elderly in this town? And quick as a flash, Ken said to her, well, what are he on about? He said, we've just provided you with a new cemetery, which I thought was brilliant. And I'm sure it wasn't in a podcast, but I felt I had to share that because that sums Ken up to a T. Now, talking about recorded music, this is something I meant to put on a week or two ago, and I forgot all about it. I had a lovely email come from Claire, and she was doing a little bit recording, and she did a little thing she put together, which is class, really. And I'll just play it to you now. I mean, I could almost use this as my intro music, really, come to think of it. But my skills at the minute of recording music isn't that good. So basically, I'm playing the music through a speaker, which I'm holding up to my microphone. So quality may not be 100%, but this is, I'll just wind it back to beginning. This is what Claire sent to me a few days ago. So here it is. Wasn't that brilliant? I feel like one of the rappers or something where they've dubbed something on. But thank you for that, Claire. That was absolutely a booty, really was. Right, well, I think now we'll go over to the first part of my interview with Margaret, somebody I've known such a long time. I mean, her and my father, knew each other, well, practically all their lives. They met at school. There was just a few years difference in them, as she will mention in the podcast. But I did pop up on the Downs and had a lovely morning there with her, and I'm sure you'll love these interviews. So this is my first part now with Margaret, and then I'll speak to you again directly when I do my Cornish dialect and everything at the end. So here it is. Get on, Margaret. I'll be knacking.
Now, what am I supposed to say to that?
Whatever.
I'm fine, thank you.
Proper job.
I'm doing all right.
That's wonderful. Brilliant. Oh, it's lovely to meet you today.
And you, David. Yes. I remember your dad so well.
Yes.
And when I go to a funeral, I know it's, talking miserable, but I think, I would love to see Dad again. Yes. I always had a little word, but like I always say hello to you.
Yes.
And ask how things were.
Because he was born, less than a mile from here.
Yes, down in Besneaves.
Besneaves, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until somebody said, David used to live, Ron used to live down Besneaves.
Yeah.
But I was a little bit older, and I went to Wen School, which was going that way.
That way, yeah.
And I remember when we were three girls.
Right.
Madeline, Doris, and Margaret.
Right.
And we were all born to girls. Dad was a farmer.
Yeah.
And when I was born, you said another darn old maid.
Oh, it did.
Because that was the third one.
Of course, yeah.
But I think I made up for that because I was always out with him.
Yeah.
And he used to go down, back then you had bullocks tied up in the houses, and about 8 or 9 o'clock he would go down to feed up their last feed.
Yeah.
And very often I used to go down with him and remember picking up the hay and putting it in front of them. And, so I feel I made up for it. And he was very much for education.
Right.
just because we were girls, I mean, a lot of people think it doesn't matter for girls, but he made sure that we had as good an education as we could accept. Madeline and Doris, they went to Lansdowne School, a private school in Weybridge, and of course they had to cycle from Treadwell to Weybridge every day.
Did they?
I mean, 5 miles or more.
Yeah.
And then when I came on, we all took back then it was the preliminary exam and the scholarship.
Right.
Well, all three of us passed the preliminary, but we didn't pass the scholarship. So then I took an entrance exam to go to Bodmin Harley.
Yeah.
And I passed that. And so then I went to Bodmin.
Yes.
And I had to cycle from Treadwell down to Grogley Holt, catch the train, and walk up all through Bodmin.
Yeah.
I did it for 4 years.
Right.
And I said to Dad, could I leave school? Because I was helping at home a bit. Oh, yes, you've done very well. So I left school after 4 years and came home and worked. And we worked on the farm. And then he was planning on retiring, and he wasn't that well. He had chest problems and that. This was in 1960, about 60 or so.
Yeah, yeah.
So Dad gave up the farm in 59. Well, yes, 59, and went into Weybridge to live.
I see.
And lived up Gombina Hill. The first house, well, first of all, he bought Little Coombank.
Oh,
There's 2 houses side by side.
Yeah.
He bought that. And then the other one came up for sale. He bought that as well. Oh. And they lived, Mum and Dad and me, and one sister had already married, Doris. We lived in Coombank.
I see.
And
so what was Mother and Father's name, son?
Thomas.
Thomas, yeah.
James and Ada Thomas.
Ah, yeah. Because the Thomas family, I always imagined, was a big family, was it?
Yes, yeah. Well, Dad only had one sister, which was Auntie Bessie Hawke from out Penpont, Amble. But he had loads and loads of cousins. My grandfather, we always called Pappy.
Right.
He was always known as Pappy. He had 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah. And
nearly all the Thomases around are related, to him.
Yeah.
And, well, like Edgar Thomas out in Scarrick.
Yes. Yeah.
He was a first cousin to my dad.
Oh, yeah.
And Henry Thomas in St. Cullum, he was a first cousin.
Yeah.
And they're dotted around, and the Tremaines down here.
Oh, yeah.
That was his Pappy's sister, Auntie Millicent.
Yeah.
So there are lots of cousins around.
Yeah.
But like that generation, well, like my generation and then, you're inclined to forget.
Definitely.
You've got your own brothers or sisters or whatever.
And what was Mother's maiden name then?
Rowe.
Oh, right.
She lived at Langhorla, St. Wen.
Oh, yes.
I don't really know very much about her family. Her mother, well, my gran then, we always called New Granny.
Oh, right.
Because my dad's mother died when he was about 3 or 4. Right. And his cousin, which was Janie Hawke, she was called, but she married a Santo from Lostwithiel way somewhere. Janie Santo. She was a first cousin to my grandfather.
Right.
A bit complicated, isn't it? She got married to this Santo and had a baby. The baby died, and things... Well, he was a dashing young man, and he used to come out riding this great big horse courting. Yeah. And she was the envy of all the girls. But anyway, it finished, so she went to London and she became the manageress of a dairy business, being a farmer's daughter, she was.
Yeah.
A dairy business in Shepherd's Bush. And she had a new life.
Yeah.
And then, because my dad's mother had died, they wrote to her, my pappy wrote to her, and asked her if she would come home and raise Auntie Bessie and Dad, because they were about 4 and 2, or just babies, really. Yeah. And she did. Yeah. Well, what a sacrifice that was for her.
Yeah.
You know, she'd had a new life, and she came out, and she was wonderful. Janie Santo, she was called, and we always called her Gran. Yeah. And she couldn't do enough for anybody. No. She was wonderful. Yeah. And she lived until she was, 95, or she's buried up St. Wen. Oh. I don't know what happened to her husband. No. I suppose he was buried, perhaps lost with the old way somewhere or whatever. But, so my dad had a good upbringing after all.
Definitely.
With new granny. So then my mother's mother we didn't know her very well, because they lived Lancorla, and then they went down St. Morgan. A farm down St. Morgan way somewhere. And we didn't used to see her that often, but she was always known as New Granny. Yeah. We had to, make sure we knew who was who, sort of thing. Exactly. And she was New Granny. But she was, because she'd lost her husband when, Mum was one of 5. And they were only, all under 10 when he died. And she was farming Lancorla, and she had the cows to milk. She had to carry on, make a living. And Mum used to say she would put Uncle Horace, which was the youngest, Horace Rowe, he was called. He was a baby, about 10, 11 months old. She used to take him out in the cow's house, make a little place in the corner, and put him in amongst the straw so she could milk the cows. Because the rest of them were gone to school. Yeah. And very often, she said the cow would lift his tail and he would have going down his shirt. What a struggle it must have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Oh. I think she did get married I remember saying to Mum when I was just a young teenager, why is New Granny not called Rowe? And Mum said, she got married again. But it was all very hush-hush.
I see.
Things was back then.
It was,
wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Back in early 40s, late 30s.
Different world.
Yes, now you would come out with it and say, yes, she got married. I think he was a greengrocer that used to go around selling vegetables and stuff.
Yeah, I see.
But I didn't further it. I thought, I was about 9 or 10 and I thought, my mum didn't want to talk about that. I'll keep quiet. Yeah. So we never really knew very much about my granny getting married again. Yeah. And she was very, I suppose she had to be tough, very aloof in a way. Yeah. Yes, but for Granny Santo, she was there all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
So all your primary schooling was St. Wen then?
St. Wen, yes. Yeah. I went to St. Wen school until I was 11.
Right.
And then I remember it was a Saturday. They had the entrance exam. And my dad took me, and it was the same day as they used to have Hates back then. And it was over Treadwell House.
Yes.
And it was the same day that I had to go in to take this entrance exam. And anyway, my dad took me in and I took it, and thank goodness I passed. And then I had to start bobbing Well, Harley, they didn't call it grammar school for a few years.
No.
Couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
This was in 1942.
So I imagine it was like when a small school going to Arley a bigger school, or no?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Well, so when school, I suppose there was about 60 to 70,
Right.
but then the evacuees came along and it was up over 100.
I see.
And I remember I was in the, 11-year-old sort of thing, because I was born in 1930, so this would be in 1940, 41.
Yeah.
They had a reading room, what they called, up in the, it was the school field, but it belonged to the parish, I think, back then. And in the corner, there was this galvanised room, about twice as big as, a bit more than that, twice as big as the kitchen here. And we were out there, and we had Mrs. Nichols, I think she was called, or Nicholas or something. She was a London teacher that came with the evacuees, and she was our teacher in that. And I was out there because we were the 11-year-olds or whatever. We just, over the last couple of years, we learned to join up, writing joining up, and we would do an F and a G with a loop like that. And this teacher came along. No, we don't have loops. We just go down. We go an F like that. And we had to change it all. Well, when you're that age, it's foreign to you, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But that was it. And then we was all writing with an F, and a G would be down. And, all those sort of letters, we'd have loops, But then we did it. And then I went in Bodmin, like I said, to take the entrance exam to go, and thank goodness I passed it. I mean, I would have been thrown out if I hadn't, I think. And then it was a big struggle. Well, I couldn't ride a bike.
Right.
I hadn't learnt to ride a bike. My sisters had a bike each because they had to go Weybridge, but I didn't have one. So that summer holidays, I had to learn to ride a bike. I came off a few times, but I managed it in the end. So then I cycled from Treadwell. You know where Treadwell is?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Down to Malbasneys.
Yeah.
Down over to Ruthern. Turn round, and I remember one morning, I hadn't been, it was the early days. I came down over past where the Tippets used to live and that. And then you had to go around there to go down the valley to Grogley. I was going around, and there was always a crowd of men standing talking there in the middle of the road, waiting for their transport to go to work or whatever. And I didn't take the corner quick enough, and I went up on the hedge.
Oh, no.
And they were all watching me, and I was, I would have been 11, 12. And when you're that age, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I scrambled. They did come across, one or two came across to make sure I was all right. But I said, no, I'm fine. I didn't fall off exactly, but I was going over the handlebars, like halfway up the hedge. But I got over that. And then, I don't know, I hadn't been there that long. Perhaps it must have been winter time. So this family came to live at Pleasant Streams. You know where Glenview is, on top of the hill?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lane going up opposite that house. And I think it's called Pleasant Streams.
Right.
And they came to live there. And this girl, Sheila, she was called, Sheila Gringer, she was going to Bodmin as well. So we used to meet up eventually when we got to know each other. And we used to go down and catch the train. Yeah, well, I had company then, but then she lived up Pleasant Stream, so it was only up to there. So from Glenview all along the valley.
Yeah.
And then there was a boy up, whether he was a grandson or a nephew, I'm not really sure, that come from St. Wen, Glebe Farm.
All right.
He started to go to Bodmin. And dark mornings, I used to leave home about, any time around about 7:30 to catch a train at 8:15.
Yeah.
And he used to come in and call for me. I think, thinking about it, I think he didn't like the dark and going down past Black Hay Lane. You could hear water both sides and it was creepy. And he used to come in and we used to go along together.
Yeah.
And then coming home, he had to go from Tregoles to St. Wen.
Yeah.
It was a hang of a long way.
Yeah. A few hills around here as well,
Yes, yes. You couldn't. I remember thinking, I'm going to ride all the way home from Grogley. And coming up from Rutherford up to Glenview is quite a pull. But I have done it a time or two.
Brilliant.
I made up my mind that I would do that. But I couldn't every night. No. But it was happy days. I had some lovely friends. We started on a Thursday. Thursday the 8th of September, I remember, I started Bodmin. And I was walking up on my own. I did it the first day. I think I must have done it the first day. The second day, you remember Chapman's, the grocers in Weybridge?
Yes, yeah.
Well, Pat Chapman,
Right.
she was 12 months older than me. She was in the years above. She and her friend Sonia Paulin from Padstow, they said to me, because I was going up on my own, they said to me, are you on your own? And I said, yes, I don't know anybody. You walk with us. I thought that was wonderful. And they were there waiting for me when I came out of school to walk down. And that went on for a while. And then I got to know some of my own class or form. And then it drifted out. But I thought they too were wonderful.
Lovely.
Didn't many girls think about it, is it? No. So
who was your friends at school then?
There was different ones. My very best friend, the very first day I met, and she was called Sylvia Masters. You know Ashley Masters?
Yes, I do.
Well, she's something to do with him.
Right.
So many cousins removed, I think. Sylvia came from Sweet's house at that time. Then she went to Blisland to live, and then they went to St. Breward. So they jumped around a bit. But Sylvia and I were friends all through school. We used to write to each other in the holidays, summer holidays. And then we've stayed friends after. We didn't never visit. People didn't really visit, and there was always harvesting or whatever. But yes, Sylvia and I suppose she was my best friend. But the problem was, she had to go to Sweet's house or some brewer. She had to go on the bus, and I was on the train, so we couldn't walk up and down.
No.
So there was girls from Weybridge. There was Joan Pollard.
Oh, right, yes.
Or Joan Pinch.
Yes.
Was she Pinch or Pollard then?
Pinch, yeah. Joan Pinch, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she was lovely. And Rita Hill.
Right.
Rita was, she had a mother. I don't think her mother was ever married. And her auntie, she lived with them. But we got on fine. They were all right. I used to go down and stay with Rita a bit sometimes. And then there was Beryl Mabs from Bodmin. We still talk. Beryl and I are still going. Sylvia died back the 29th of February.
Oh, right.
The extra day.
Yeah, leap year. Yeah.
Yes. A little gang of us, and we used to walk up and down. And
so what age was you at Harley then? Was that
I was 11.
11 till 14 or 16? Or?
16. Well, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Right.
I left the summer. I would have been 16 December. Because my birthday is Saturday.
Oh,
Yeah. So I left a term before I was 16.
Right.
I said to my dad, it was hard work, cycling down there, reading home again. I said to Dad, could I leave school? And he thought about it. He said, oh, I should think so. You've done very well. Because I was out, I mean, like lambing and harvest time and that. I was always out handing sheaves or helping in one way or another. Probably a bit more nuisance than help, but then there we are. Yes, I left the summer of 46.
Yeah.
I started 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. Yes, I did 4 years like that. And then my dad retired. He went into Weybridge to live in 49.
I see. So that 3 years you worked on the farm, did it? I see.
Yes. And in that time I met Nick, and well, we've been together ever since.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Wasn't that proper? I hope you enjoyed that. I tell you, I loved, well, I spent the whole morning up there, really. We had a lovely time, we really did. And there'll be part 2 will come next week. Now, for me Cornish dialect of the week, Tin actually dialect is a little story, so it is a little bit different. But Ian Benalek sent me a lovely email that his father John remembered something from going back for Christmases years ago. And I expect you remember I did a few podcasts, I think 2 it was, with John Benalek, which went down really well. And Ian actually said that John could remember in the old days, the newspapers, they was all set up manually. And I can remember actually when I worked down Weybridge Printers when I was a boy, you'd have to type set out. You'd type it out and then it will go molten, and you'd also have the little letters, you put them all together. And this one Christmas, it was reported in the Cornish Guardian that Bodmin Band played cards in the street. Well, they didn't actually play cards in the street, but whoever set up the type for the newspaper that week had actually put the letters too close together. So instead of carols, it said cards. So what they was actually doing, Bodmin Band, was playing carols in the street. But John always remembered it. He said when you read it, it said Bodmin Band played cards in the street. So I thought that would be my nice little story for this week. Me Cornish language, I thought I'd do please and thank you. I don't know if I've done they before now, but if I have, 'tis a refresher course. But if I am, well, here 'tis. So if you was to say please, you'd say marpleg. And if you was to say thank you, 'twould be Miraz. So there we go. Right, well, I'm going to leave you now. Say tomorrow's Friday, which is good, then 'tis the weekend. So all is well. So I'd like to wish you well. Do Guinness, Curno Bisfican, and if I've got this sorted right, you'll now hear a little bit of music. Cheers and gone.